Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Indiana Jones and Disney. Disney has a serious problem on their hands. Their woke Indiana Jones movie has bombed. Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny is doing about what they were saying it would do, but unfortunately, that is not going to cover the budget, and it's going to go down as a major financial loss for Disney and Lucasfilm. It's also showing that Lucasfilm just can't actually make films. I mean, it's right in the name. You can't have a studio called Lucasfilm with all of the expense of having a film studio and not actually make movies that sometimes make a lot of money. This is a problem Bob Iger needs to deal with. He knows he needs to deal with it. I think he might take this as an opportunity to, yes, finally get rid of Kathleen Kennedy. How can he do that? Let's get into the story. I think I have a way he can do it and actually pull it off. Before we get into the story, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate you guys. I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers, so if you can't subscribe, please do subscribe. Okay, first the financial results coming from Bounding Into Comics. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny bombs at the box office. Only 9% of moviegoers heard it was good from friends and family. That is a very low number. That is not what you want. If people aren't going to talk about a movie, especially a big budget blockbuster movie, it is not going to be a blockbuster. It's going to be a big bomb. And that's where the low numbers are probably coming in. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny completely cratered during its opening weekend at the box office. The film only grossed $60 million domestically in its 3-day opening weekend and another $70 million internationally for a global total of $130 million, $10 million less than projections. So the Numbers website predicted the film would open at $73.8 million domestically on its opening weekend. It also fell short from Box Office Pro's prediction of $70.3 million on opening weekend. I predicted it would be around The Flash or a little bit better than The Flash, so I guess it's kind of close to what I predicted with The Flash. It just didn't do well enough. They spent way too much money making this movie. How much money did they spend? So a very interesting tweet this morning from that umbrella guy. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this movie costing $250 million, $295 million. Some have said $300 million. There's a journalist at Deadline, and he does some interesting articles. He talks very specifically about inside info and gives good numbers on budgets. He covers a lot of what they do with ancillary revenues, like when rights are sold off in other places and what the rumors are of how much money they get for streaming rights and things like that. In his Deadline article, that umbrella guy has a great YouTube channel, caught this clip and retweeted it. How could Disney and Lucasfilm mess this up? Yesterday, I learned from a key source that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, before the $100 million in marketing expenses, cost a mind-boggling $329 million, much higher than the $250 to $295 million that's been leaked out in the industry. What's fascinating about that is, first of all, that is a really high number. After that started going around this morning, I was looking into preparing to do this video, and I went to go find exactly what all the context was. And when I searched for it, it was no longer on the Deadline website. I know that this is a real screen capture that umbrella guy did, and it really makes you wonder because, of course, Disney and their publicity offices have relationships with these websites. They don't want this movie to look like any more of a failure than it actually is. But of course, there's not much that they can do about that. It really is a super bomb, and it's a serious threat to the company. And that's why I say it creates a crisis for Disney, because Disney is, for the first time, this was in a downgrade notice put out by one of the financial analysts, and there are a few key ones that have been downgrading Disney over the last month or two. This one, KeyBank, brought up this question at the end of their downgrades, and the downgrade is, they said, hey, Disney is not as reliable a stock as we would have said it was yesterday. We don't recommend you buy it right now. And they gave a number of reasons. I have a whole video about it, but I want to bring this one up because it's so relevant and it hits hard right at the end. Quote, are the days of 200 million plus productions done? He said that Disney may need to fundamentally rethink its content creation strategy. This is before the numbers come in on Dial of Destiny, and that Disney is obviously going to lose anywhere from $200 to $250 million on this movie. It's hard to know how much, but it's not going to be a little. And it's not just this movie. If you look at what's been going on, and I'm not even talking about Pixar losses, I'm not talking about problems with Marvel. Those are other problems. I'm just talking about the Lucasfilm division. They spent $4 billion on Lucasfilm. They made money from Lucasfilm from licensing, but look, it needs to be a viable studio if it's going to be its own studio. There's no question about that. You can't just say, well, we've got this extra studio. Every 4 or 5 years or so, it puts out a movie and we lose $250 million. That's not business. And Iger was brought back to Disney as CEO because they were in a credibility crisis with Bob Chapek. He was upsetting everyone, Chapek. He got in trouble with Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill allegations, and he had other strategic problems, including spending so much money on content for the streaming service. I mean, like way too much money on content for the streaming service that people weren't even really watching. But to look at what Lucasfilm used to do and what it's doing now, going to 2015, it did over $2 billion worldwide on Star Wars The Force Awakens. Of course, they made money on that. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, $1 billion. Star Wars The Last Jedi, which was a movie that people didn't like, and it still brought in $1.3 billion. Solo, a Star Wars story in 2018, this is where the trouble starts, brings in $393.1 million worldwide on a budget of $275 million. That is a problem, and that scared them, and that's what caused them to really cut back on production. They did release The Rise of Skywalker, another movie people didn't really like, but at $1 billion, $1.074 billion, that's still a moneymaker for them, even on a $275 million budget. This is not a moneymaker for them, though. Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, this is not going to generate enough money to cover the costs of production. They can pay it. Disney's not going bankrupt, but they do need to operate their business in a way that people look at it and they don't ask questions like this when analysts are looking at it and putting out to the public, hey, Disney may not be able to make $200 million productions anymore. Maybe they ought to rethink their entire content creation business. Maybe they can't make movies. Disney has Pixar. They have their entire Disney library. They have a 100-year history. They have Marvel. They're supposed to be able to make profitable movies. They have Star Wars. They have every possible brand. But what they also have is this poisonous woke environment. They did get rid of their woke diversity officer who was apparently meddling around with all of their content with the permission of management, but pushing the woke agenda and the diversity agenda into stories absolutely destroys all the value of their intellectual properties because it makes them not real stories anymore when you're only focusing on representation. Interestingly, Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery also got rid of their diversity heads. Now, when they get rid of these diversity heads, when you get rid of an executive, and Bob Iger recently got rid of the chief financial officer over at Disney, it doesn't mean you're not going to replace these people, but you're not going to continue what those people were doing. You're going to have the new people come in and do the function in a way that serves whatever your longer term business strategy is. And that's why Bob Iger is firing those executives. That's why he got rid of Victoria Alonso out of Marvel. That's why a Netflix and a Warner Brothers Discovery would normally get rid of those executives in those spots, because you do still need people for these positions, but you need them to serve the larger corporate plan, whatever that is. I do think that Bob Iger has a plan, and I think it's relatively secret. I think we'll see him surprise us, but I don't know exactly what he'll do. What I think he could do, and what I think he ought to do, because he can't seem to get rid of Kathleen Kennedy on her own. He cannot embarrass her. We still don't really know if she reports directly to the board of directors, which might be part of her deal, or if she reports to Bob Iger. She seems very strangely independent. However, Bob Iger could be making the argument to the board that it doesn't make sense for Lucasfilm to exist as its own separate studio, let's say outside of Marvel's studio, particularly because they've cut back on the production of everything they were making. Less Pixar, less Walt Disney, less Marvel, less Lucasfilm, like less content in general. And we have the writer's strike going on. So there's less capacity being used with each of these studios. And if Lucasfilm is not this magical place that makes tons and tons of money, why not give Kathleen Kennedy an easy way to leave the company by just simply saying, well, we love the creativity and everything that Kathleen Kennedy has done for the company, but because of cost savings and planning for a new reality in the future, we're going to fold Lucasfilm under Marvel as a studio, for example. And we would love for Kathleen Kennedy to continue as a producer, which she would never do, and they know she would never do. They can say nice things about her. She can leave and make it not about her. These people have been working in Hollywood a long time. No one's reputation is going to get ruined over this. No one's going to call anyone out and say, you're terrible, you're incompetent. Kathleen Kennedy, it's all your fault. You destroyed Lucasfilm. Iger is not going to say that. It's all going to be nice complimentary things, and we wish things could have stayed the same, but business realities cause us to have to change it. Bob Iger just did exactly this to Ike Perlmutter from Marvel. Not quite as nicely, but not super negatively. He was allowed to leave without a lot of nasty comments being made about Ike Perlmutter. It seems like a very Bob Iger kind of thing to do. I would be the first to say, for example, take a look at Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This is a claim of what the profit supposedly is on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And when you take into account the fact that, yes, they've sold the movie in theaters, they've sold it internationally as well in theaters, they've sold it through home entertainment sources, they've gotten television and streaming revenues that they can account for, because Disney has all of its own distribution. So it's like owning a cattle ranch and also owning restaurants. If you sell beef to those restaurants, it's revenue. Even if there's no money changing hands, it's reported as revenue. The distribution that Disney has is a tremendous advantage to Disney because, for example, a movie like Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny didn't do so well in theaters. You think Netflix is going to pay them more than their own streaming service? No, Netflix would negotiate a very low number for them. They can book a much higher number by selling it to their own streaming service. Similarly, broadcast TV rights. Similarly for their cable rights and all kinds of other rights. Even with every cheat and every advantage that Disney has with distribution, they are not going to be able to show a profit for Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. They claim they made a profit of $259 million on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Yet at the same time, ask them, oh, so you're going to do a sequel to Wakanda Forever? Oh, no, you know what? No. This is them fooling around with numbers. But even the most aggressive fooling around, they're not going to be making any money on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This one is going to lose at least $250 million for them. However, if Iger is smart and he is at least crafty, he will take advantage of the opportunity to use this loss to consolidate Lucasfilm under one of their other studio divisions, get rid of Kathleen Kennedy, and make this loss worth something. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you know that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny would be a flop for Disney and Lucasfilm? Or did you think this thing did have a chance because it did have Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones? It would be like William Shatner playing Captain Kirk one more time. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, not if you've got Kathleen Kennedy in charge of it and if Disney doesn't really care about pleasing their fans. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Really appreciate you. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.